sense, God.
American, young, old, rich, poor.
I'm Judy Strand, and on behalf of the Commission for Senior Services, I welcome you to this great event, the first ever Oregon White House Conference on Aging. Thank you for being here. I'm really honored to represent the Governor's Commission. It is a vital voice of advocacy for all Oregonians, and I'd like to thank each and every one of you for the ideas that you're going to bring forward today that are going to inform our nation. I also want to make some special acknowledgments of the sponsors and contributors for today's event. Samaritan Health and the Conference Center staff, the Medicaid Long-Term Care Quality and Reimbursement Advisory Council, AARP Oregon, the Oregon Department of Veterans Affairs, the Oregon Association of Area Agencies on Aging, CCTV Salem, Albany Volunteer Caregivers, and our fantastic conference planning committee. I also need to acknowledge Ann McQueen, who staffed this conference, and I would like her to be identified. Where is Ann? Where is she? There she is. So this would not happen without her, and I want all of you to know that. Believe me, we couldn't have done it. So great gratitude there. I wanted to start by acknowledging the fact that many of our cultures, especially our indigenous cultures, value elders in a way that is exemplary, and that many of our immigrant communities that now live in Oregon are showing us that same example. However, I believe that our dominant culture has not yet caught on, and I think that that has prompted a number of comments from a number of aging advocates. One is Gloria Steinem, who said, "At my age, people often ask me if I'm passing the torch. I explain that I'm keeping my torch, thank you very much, and I'm using it to light the torches of others. Because only if each of us has a torch will there be enough light." So in light of all of that, I wanted to think a little bit about what we're focusing on today. In Seattle at the regional conference, which a few of us had a chance to attend, we talked about a lot of important things: economic security, underpaid caregiver staff, absence of culturally specific and culturally responsive aging, lack of mental health services, lack of geriatric specialists, inadequate transportation, all kinds of issues that all of you know better than I do. And all of those are incredibly important. At the same time, we know that in Oregon, we've been a state with some innovative ideas. We've stepped forward in prevention and community-based care and person-centered practice in a very bold way, and I know that we'll do that again today, and that's why we want to hear your voices. I also would like to challenge us to think beyond just looking at the needs one by one and look at the interconnectedness of the needs and what that might bring to our minds in terms of a creative solution for this growing population of older adults. And what if we looked at the ways we can capitalize on the age wave and view that 1 in 5 of us who will be 65 and older by 2030 as a true untapped resource for our community as a whole? A few years back, I was 15, it was 1971, I heard about Maggie Kuhn, who we know started the Gray Panther movement, and she was really of great interest to me at that time, and I wrote her a letter. And of all things, she wrote back to me. I found her letter recently in my family's home when I was cleaning out the home. And in that letter, she encouraged me to be an advocate and fight ageism. She was, for me, one of those lights, one of those torches. And there was something that I'm sure one of you sent me recently that talked about what older adults could be for us in our society. And Maggie Kuhn said that as risk takers, older adults can change the world. They can humanize society. They have 5 roles that she talked about. They are mentors who teach the young, mediators who resolve civil, racial, and intergenerational conflict, monitors of public bodies who serve as watchdogs of City Hall and Congress, mobilizers of social change, and motivators of a society who urge people away from self-interest and toward public good. Our world desperately needs those 5 roles. And think of it. Think of all the conflicts, the intercultural conflicts, the global issues that affect our planet. This is the time to bring our elders into the public square. And I know when I talk about them, the older adults, I'm looking at a room where we understand that they is we, because we want that place when it's our time to humanize and heal the world. And I hope that today we'll come up with some fantastic ways to do that. Okay, so getting to the nitty-gritty, you have these lovely green folders, and as we go forward, they will guide you, and they are color-coded and everything. So in here, you will see the agenda. You'll see a number of pieces of paper on the right. There are issue brief sheets that are color-coded by each issue that we're talking about today, and that will help give you a little background information. And there are some conference evaluations that are purple, and we really would love to have your feedback about how we're doing with this conference today. So I'd now like to introduce Marty Cahill, the Samaritan Lebanon Community Hospital CEO. Since 2013, Marty has been Chief Operations Officer of Samaritan Lebanon Community Hospital and has served as the CEO at Samaritan North Lincoln Hospital and Director of Physician Relations for Samaritan Health Services. We're very thankful for this lovely conference space. So, Marty?
Good morning, everyone, and welcome. This is a great event. Thank you for your participation, and welcome to our event center. We've literally, in the last 2 weeks, opened our hotel. We've got this event center for the last year, so we're starting to utilize it. So let us know how it goes. Give us feedback. We would greatly appreciate that. Again, I'd like to thank you for your participation, the coordinators for this event. I think that your help today will be useful in directing policy and direction for the next 10 years. Some of the things that you're going to be talking about and hearing about today: retirement security, healthy aging, long-term services and supports, and elder justice. And I think together we can all build healthier communities, and I believe that the work here today will be heard back in DC by this summer. So I wish you well. If you have time, there's a jam-packed agenda for you today. But if you can get out and take a look at the garden, there's a Japanese healing garden right next to this facility, nice koi pond. So go out and relax a little bit in between your sessions. Have a good day and welcome. Thank you.
I'd now like to introduce Danny Ledesma from Governor Kate Brown's office. Danny is the governor's Housing and Human Services Policy Advisor, and prior to coming to the governor's office, she served as the Director of Equity, Policy, and Communications at the City of Portland's Housing Bureau. Danny?
Hi, good to see you. Good morning, everyone. On behalf of our Governor, Kate Brown, we'd like to welcome you and thank you for all the work that you're going to do today and that you do every day on behalf of older adults so that to ensure their safety, that they're financially secure, and that their needs are being met. As you know, our communities are stronger, they can thrive when the outcome of the work that you are doing is fulfilled. And as you know, our governor is a strong supporter and champion of the work that you do, and is here to stand shoulder to shoulder with you as we contend with some of the issues that face older adults. So today, as you contend with and discuss and come up with the best and possible ideas around policy change impacting retirement security, healthy aging, elder justice, and long-term supports and services for older Americans, we're really looking forward to the outcome of these conversations that you're having and also how we can support that moving forward. We'd like to thank our hosts that are here, today, all of the keynote speakers and panelists for sharing your wisdom and information with us. And we'd really like to thank the Governor's Commission on Senior Services for your service, your ongoing service and commitment to this issue. We'd like to thank our chair, Judy Strand, and what the governor would like to make sure that you all know is that we're ready to work with you. We've got really strong leaders at the state. Our DHS director, Erin Kelly Seal, to work with you, and we look forward to continuing this important work. So thank you.
Thanks, Danny. We now get to hear from Erin Kelly Seal, the director of the Oregon Department of Human Services. Erin started as the director in April of 2011, and she's done a lot of work in safety and protective service and health outcomes for older adults and people with disabilities. And she's been a very strong support to the commission as well, and we're really happy to have her as a leader in our state. So where are you there?
Trying to be quick.
You're being very
Keep
quick.
us on time.
Oops, there
Sorry,
we go.
Judy. Good morning, everyone. All right, come on, Oregon. Let's have some energy here for our federal partners who want to hear from us. This is an amazing opportunity for us here in Oregon. Thank you for that and for bringing the conference here to Lebanon, of all places. Thank you for driving through the farmlands to be here. I'm sure many of you were wondering, as was I, if we were headed in the right direction as we came to this beautiful site, but I'm glad you all made it. It's amazing to think that a conference in Lebanon can sell out in a matter of days, hours, weeks, and that we have a full house, and I'm excited about the energy and insight and intellect that's in the room today, so thank you for being here. In Oregon, we can't help but take pride in all that we've accomplished on behalf of older adults that happen to reside here who decide to come here because of how fantastic a place it is to live. We should be really proud. We had some pioneering efforts that came decades before us, who set the bar really high in terms of a vision for our state around what it should look like to age, both in terms of health and healthy environments and places that we want to be able to live, and also in terms of a long-term care system that supports people to live at home and in community, and with choice and with dignity and with independence. And those are values and a vision that we hold very true and fast in our hearts, and we should. When I go around and I meet with the different staff who do the work on behalf of our agency and on behalf of all of you, I always ask them, so what's going well and what's keeping you up at night? So I thought I would talk about a few things that are relevant to today's discussion that I think are going well here in Oregon, and a couple of things that keep us up at night that we're looking forward to you all having some conversation about today. So what's going well here in Oregon? In terms of the seniors in the state who are low income, it's extraordinary that 87% of them get to remain at home or living in community settings. We can boast of that fact here in Oregon, and we should, because those values that I talked about have really driven a system that supports individual plans for people that allow them to be able to live with dignity, choice, and independence in whatever way is best for them at the right place at the right time. We've accomplished much in that regard, and it's been a lot of hard work, and a lot of you in this room were part of that, and I appreciate it. We also feel good about our third in the nation ranking around several things. I'm going to read them because I won't get them all right unless I do, but affordability, access, choice of setting and provider, support for family caregivers, and effective transitions. That's quite a list, and we're proud to be third in the country. We'd love to be first, though, right? So let's talk about a couple things that keep us up at night that we need to keep working on together. And I will say, others today are here to impart their wisdom upon us. One of the jokes is some of the first people who speak know the least, so I'll just throw that out there for you, but here you go. So one of the things that keeps me up is that women and people of color tend to have the least saved for retirement. And even beyond that, 48% of all Oregonians will rely only on Social Security for their retirement savings. That will afford them to live with about $12,000 a year of income. Oregon ranks in the top 5 states in the country for hunger and food insecurity among older adults. 1 in 3 Oregonians age 65 plus fall every year, with 20 to 30% of those falls resulting in bruises, hip fractures, and traumatic brain injury, which ultimately compromises the ability to live independently. Health disparities among people of color in this state remain stubbornly high, and access to care in rural and frontier Oregon is exceedingly difficult, especially for specialty care like gerontology and mental health. We screened over 35,000 abuse and neglect reports in 2013, And we saw nearly a 40% increase in substantiated abuse involving older adults that live at home or in community settings. Oregon seniors and people with disabilities are estimated to have lost over $11.5 million in savings and equity in 2013 as a result of financial exploitation. We clearly have work to do. That's why you're all here. Just 2 years ago, my grandfather, at the age of 92, passed away in an assisted living facility here in Oregon. He was an amazing individual who greatly influenced my life. He survived abuse as a child, the Great Depression, a mental health challenge that threatened his career as an educator, but he taught me many, many things, many important things, like how to waltz and to polka, how to drive a tractor, how to bake, how to garden. But some of the most important things he taught me were these, and I think you're going to apply them today to the work. People can do anything if they put their minds to it. In my case, around the time of potty training, that looks like this with my grandfather. Papa, I need to go potty. Mind you, I'm not potty trained yet. Well, then why don't you just go? You know where the toilet is. Okay, so I did. My mom says I was potty trained after that. So people can do anything if you put your mind to it. We are put here on this earth not for the good of ourselves, but for the good of others. Hard work pays off. So as you put your minds to some of the most pressing challenges here today of our time, you will be asked to set aside what might be in your own personal best interest for the good of our nation, for the good of all Oregonians. And it's abundantly clear that the hard work that you do will make a difference in the lives of many, many people following the outcome of today and the recommendations, setting the course for the next decades of change and innovation and pioneering spirit that we need to have around some of the challenges we're facing now.
We have one more panel, and then you get to speak. So welcome, and I'm going to introduce Jim Davis, who will moderate the Long-Term Services and Supports panel. I'm sure many of you know Jim. He's a well-known activist for aging and is a commissioner as well, and has done a lot of work in mental health and for people with disabilities. He is an associate professor in the Human Science Department at Marylhurst University, and he also is a psychologist. Jim has served in a number of different advisory capacities on a number of different efforts, including the Oregon State Insurance Advisory Committee for 25 years. He's the chair of the National Coalition of Consumer Organizations on Aging, the advocacy arm of the National Council on Aging, and he is the longtime executive director of the Oregon State Council of Retired Citizens and United Seniors of Oregon, who he has served with since 1970s. So Jim is doing a lot of work, and I give him to you now.
Well, thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here. You know, I'm very much tied to the White House Conference on Age. I've been involved for decades with it, and I had the chance to chair our Oregon delegation to the last 2005 White House Conference on Aging, and then was on the delegation of the 1995 White House Conference at Georgina Carroll. I don't know if she's still around. She helped coordinate that one, but this is the White House Conference process is one of the most important processes in the history of aging programs, and is a major reason for some of the best innovations that have happened in our field. And so, yeah, I'm very much dedicated to this. You know, I've had the honor of being involved with this system for 42 years now out in the field. Today is my birthday, actually. Yeah, what a place to spend your birthday. I'm 62 today, and so, you know, those twos crop up, but I've been involved with the field since the 1970s, back to interning for the Special Committee on Aging that came up with Oregon Project Independence and some of the earliest stuff, and it was really very, very cool to be able to watch our system grow as it has grown. And it has grown into the model long-term care, in-home and long-term care system in the country. And I'll tell you, I deal with those states that finished 1 and 2, and there's no question that Oregon is number 1. We have the best in-home and community-based care system. We're not number 3. Minnesota and Wisconsin, they know we're not number 3. We have the best system in the country that has served people within their homes, has innovated assisted living and adult foster care, and has really made a significant difference where all of a sudden we were the first state and were the model state in using Medicaid dollars for community-based care. And instead of some states that are using 80% of their dollars for nursing home care, we use half of our dollars for community-based care. And a lot of our nursing home care is rehabilitation. So we have a very different concept of long-term care in this state, and by far have absolutely the most superior system. And that's why I'm honored for us to be able to present a wonderful group of speakers today and to look at this system, and for you to be able to think on both a state, regional, and national level about what we need to do to preserve and protect this critically important system. You know, what kind of recommendations you have around the Older Americans Act programs, around the Medicaid programs. You know, these are the type of things that we'll be utilizing as advocates in the future to really develop an even better model than we have now. So it's a pleasure to be here and to have you all here today. We have a great panel for you, and I've kind of decided an order of who I think would be best to speak, and my bias is always towards advocates. So we're going to start with an advocate, and we're going to finish with an advocate. But we're going to start with Jim McConnell, who's been a good friend of mine for many, many years, and we've worked together for, I don't know how long we've known each other, 30 plus years. Jim McConnell has been really one of the pioneers in our system and served for over 20 years as the executive director of the Multnomah County Area Agency on Aging, or Senior and Disability Services. Peggy Bray is now doing a great job with that, but he has been a real model for a AAA director, and served as the state chair for AAAs, and I think probably national chair too. He is now the president of United Seniors of Oregon and a board member of the Oregon State Council for Retired Seniors, and we're very, very proud to have him with us and offer the expertise that he does as well. He's a national consultant and speaker on long-term care issues, and promotes a system very similar to Oregon's, our model in-home and community-based care system. It goes into other states and helps them set up similar models. And so we're very proud of the work that he's done, and welcome, Jim.
Thanks, Jim. Jim's introduction is longer than the amount of time they gave me to speak.
Well, thank you very much, Jim.
I feel like I've been called to write flash fiction, if some of you may know what that is, where you're supposed to write a short story in 17 words or 20 words or 30 words. So let me go right to the point. You've heard a lot of information about what the Oregon system is like, what the factors are, the range of services, the vision and values. And so I want to talk a little bit about the bigger system and send a message to the feds. Long-term care, as we have shown in Oregon for the past 30 plus years, almost 40 years now, long-term care is not a health system. Long-term care is a home and community-based system, and it deals with quality of living, not healthcare issues. If we want healthcare, let's go to the clinics and let's go to the hospitals and let's go to the doctors, but don't put long-term care into healthcare. 40 years ago, it was a big struggle to pull long-term care in Oregon out of the health system. And unfortunately, there's some movement across the country now to put long-term care back into accountable care organizations in this community, coordinated care organizations, to be run again by the health systems to meet health standards. For example, when I was consulting in Tennessee, they decided to put long-term care into the health system as an integrated system, immediately they required that all case managers in the long-term care system be RNs, registered nurses. So immediately they were applying health standards to a system that needed nothing but common sense and good judgment to make sure that people were getting what they needed in the community. So my message to you today is that we need to focus on long-term care as a system that is going to keep people living for as long as possible in their own homes or as close to home as possible, or in a home-like setting if they can't stay in their own homes. You know all that philosophy. And we need to raise long-term care or long-term services and supports up to where it is recognized as a system unto itself. It needs to be connected very strongly with health systems, but it also has to be connected with housing systems, with transportation systems, with vocational rehab systems, etc. You cannot put it into another specialized system and make it work the way it's supposed to work in Oregon. So I'm recommending that the feds develop, maybe through the Older Americans Act, a national comprehensive plan that spells out the vision, the values, the policies that address quality of living needs of future generations of older persons and persons with disabilities. Let's stay focused on that and not on the health needs of people. The plan should address the needs of those in need and persons who are at risk of losing their homes, their health, their mobility, their independence further down the road. So not just focusing on low-income people, not just focusing on people with very high needs. We need to start looking at a more comprehensive approach to how we deal with these problems. I suggest we also change the language of long-term services and supports to reflect the new focus on independent living and quality of life. When I was in Kentucky, I was suggesting that we call it disability and aging independent living. But then the Kentucky people found out that DAIL, disability, aging, independent living, was a Gaelic word that refers to the Congress in Dublin. It's, so they said, no, you tried to pull a fast one on us. We're not going to use that term. I suggest that the feds also provide incentives to states to expand the range of housing and service options to promote independence and choice, and not stick only with the incentives that are now there to join into the coordinated care approach. Let's test the two systems, see how they work, and compare. I also suggest that we attach health, transportation, housing, employment systems, retirement security to the independent living system, not the other way around. So I'm calling on a group like this today to rise up and say long-term services and supports, quality of life and quality of living is what we want to promote. And we don't want it associated with other kinds of systems that are only addressing one aspect of aging well. Get behind a comprehensive approach and take seriously this system that many of us have been passionate about. And I have to tell you, I am as passionate today about Oregon's long-term care system as I was back 35 years ago when we were developing this system for the first time. So I'm hoping to see that kind of passion in this room and in what you bring out to recommend to the feds. Thank you.
Our next speaker will give a perspective from the area agencies on aging, which coordinate local services. And Rodney Schroeder is the Executive Director of the Northwest Senior and Disability Services and is the Chair of the Oregon Association of Area Agencies on Aging and Disability. This particular area agency is one of the model area agencies in the state, and I believe 5 counties that they deal with, and has always been one of the big models for us for AAAs. They deal with SNAP programs, Medicaid, Oregon Project Independence, Older Americans Act programs. They deal with Clatsop, Marion, Polk, Tillamook, and Yamhill counties. O4AD itself is the membership organization that is comprised of various AAAs from around the state, and of course their purpose is like all our purpose for the independence, dignity, and choice of Oregon seniors and people with disabilities. Welcome, Rodney.
Thanks, Jim. So I have a series of PowerPoint slides, and so somebody's challenged me that with a time constraints, if I can get through these. And so as a colleague of mine says, get your seatbelts out, put your seatbelts on, and we'll move along fairly quickly. But first, as I was reflecting on this morning and thinking about some of the things, so one of the things I realized is that I too am an old man. And then as we look at, and I've heard several different theories of the silver tsunami, the silver toolbox, all that stuff. So when you don't have any silver or nothing up there to turn silver, what would it be called? And I don't have an answer yet, but I'm thinking about that. Somebody said silver bullet. I like that. I like that. So what are long-term services and supports? And so Kaiser Commission on Medicaid and the Uninsured defines that as services and supports needed when the ability to care for oneself has been reduced by a chronic illness, disability, or aging. As Jim mentioned a second ago, it's not health care. So it is about how a person lives 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, how they handle their activities of daily living in their lives every day of every year. Why it's important. So we've seen some of this discussion this morning about the financial preparations for it and for retirement and for aging. Most individuals don't plan for long-term services and supports. I won't ask you to do it, but many of us in here probably don't have long-term care insurance. So that's a separate insurance that would help pay for some of those needs when you reach that point. Most people don't understand that Medicare, they think Medicare is going to be paying for that when they get to that point. Medicare won't provide some of those services for activities of daily living. And it's not as part of the benefit package with most employers. Why does it matter? And I won't spend much time here. These are the same demographics we heard. Oregon and the nation are aging. And what's again, another slide that shows that. But what's most important as you look at this slide, the scale on the bottom is as you get older, and the scale on the left-hand side, or the y-axis, is the percentage of people that are going to need some help with their activities of daily living as they get older. So that as it ramps up, as you get older, it's more likely that you're going to need help. And as we're living longer with health care and such, it's more likely than not that many of us in the room are going to need some type of help at some point. That's why it becomes important. Another slide of the same thing. I'm going to click through this next group of slides really fast, but as the slides turn dark, the darker colors mean a higher percentage of seniors in each of these counties. So you start looking back in 1980, things are fairly light. 2000, 2005, this year, 2025. So you've seen those counties get darker and darker colors. That is a higher demographic of seniors. And I'll note there as well, a lot of the counties are, the rural counties are some of the most aging most quickly. So quickly on Oregon's model, Oregon, a long time ago, we envisioned a world where seniors and people with disabilities have the resources that they need and the support that they need to live where they want. So this is the consumer choice. ORS 410, there should be angels kind of, ooh, or in the background. But this was long ago, and it was the model that Oregon's long-term system and support is modeled after. Quickly, in '65 is when the Older Americans Act, so it's a 50-year. So the tenets that make up some of our system, Older Americans Act, we're 50 years now. Oregon Project Independence, a lot of us talk about that and know about that. That was created by the legislature in 1975, and it's a program that provides a small level of supports to keep people in their homes and safe, and delaying them to go on to Medicaid or some more intensive things. In 1980, the study of a service delivery, which then resulted in the 81 1915 C waiver, first in the nation. Oregon was able to serve people instead of nursing facilities in homes and in community-based care settings. This is the piece that Jim Davis just talked about. Again, something that Oregon was a leader in. In '89, Senate Bill 875 combined that under SDST. I'm going to cruise. So 1999, the Olmstead decision is where there was a decision where people have a right, and this didn't create as many changes for seniors and people with physical disabilities as it did for developmental disabilities, but people have a right to be served in the communities and not in an institutional setting. And the final slide there then is our service eligibility. It may not, I guess you can see it on there fairly well, but on our Medicaid programs, we serve levels 1 through 13 right now, and then as the OPI and such can serve folks with the higher levels there, or 14 through 18. So that was it. What do you think?
Can you share that PowerPoint?
I believe that it's all online, right? So the question was
know.
the PowerPoint. I assume the materials are on a website somewhere?
They will be.
They will be, okay.
Oh, okay. Good. Well, our next speaker we're honored to have Dr. Richard Weinman with us, who is a respected advocate for disability causes. He is a professor emeritus of media communication at Oregon State University. During his 50 years as a professor, boy, I have some catching to do to get 50 years. During his 50 years, he has had a concurrent career as a narrator, a voice actor, and broadcaster. Now that he's retired and forced to live in assisted living due to a disabling accident, he has become he has initiated a third career as a spokesman and advocate for seniors and people with disability in long-term care, and boy, we always welcome that. He has produced a nationally recognized video documentary about his life in an assisted living, and if I've heard so many good things about that. If you really have an opportunity to see that, you really should. And he writes a bi-monthly blog for AARP, and he was invited to take part in the Seattle Regional, and so that's quite an honor in and of itself. So welcome, Dr. Weinman. It's great to have you.
I could see you better from here, so I'm going to move over these not made for manual wheelchairs carpet that they have in this facility, and that's why I need Deb Rush with me today. Okay. Let me know if you can hear me okay.
I can.
You can?
We'll get some,
Yay or nay?
yay.
Nay. Okay. The media will always screw up whenever you make a presentation.
Hold that temporarily, and I'll go get the sound up.
How about the sound? I'll hold it.
Okay.
You don't have to hold it. Is it unidirectional or say, okay. Anyhow, I discovered last night that I'm a veteran of long-term services and support. And I thought I was a newbie. But then going over the time I've been in facilities, I knew I was older at it. For the last 9 years, I've been at an assisted living facility in Corvallis and Alf. And during that time, my wife has been in a dementia Alzheimer's facility in Albany. That's about 8 years there. So together we have 17 years in separate facilities. Before I moved to the Alpha in Corvallis, I spent 2 weeks at the Rehabilitation Institute of Oregon in Portland, known as RIO, which is a basic training for rehabilitation. And then 5 months prior to that, I was a resident at a SNF in Multnomah City, outside of Portland. And then 4 months prior to that, I was at the Oregon Health Sciences University Hospital. So I have been serviced for a long time, and I am now a veteran. And you think after all this time, I would have some wisdom, being as old as I am, I would have some wisdom about what long-term services and support should be. I have some ideas which I'd like to present to you after I introduce Deborah Brush here, without whom, as a dependent person, not independent, but a dependent person, who once was independent, trying to live as a dependent person, I need her to get me through this day, to push me over these, as I said before, not so inviting for wheelchair carpeting, to take me to the bathroom when there's a break, to help pour my water, to help cut my food. That's a caregiver. That's a caregiver with a heart. I wouldn't have gotten here if it wasn't for Valley Caregivers and Susan Driver, who drove me from Corvallis to Lebanon and will be picking me up at 4 o'clock. And one of the things I've been thinking of during all these wonderful ideas that have been coming out is when I get back, if I leave at 4, I'll get back about 10 to 5, which is chaos time at my assisted living facility. I know when I get in, well, I don't know who my caregiver will be. Will it be somebody who doesn't care about what she's doing, and it, as one of the slides showed, well, it was just a job and you're here, so I'll do the job? Or is it somebody who cares about me? Or is it somebody who wants to get to the next room after me? Or will there be somebody at 10 minutes before 5 because all the other 40 people are being brought down into the dining room because that's the dining hour? So I'm ahead of that. So I need to go to the bathroom. I can't go to the bathroom myself. So she'll have to take me to the bathroom. I hope she'll get me out of these uncomfortable clothes and get me into a t-shirt and some lounge pants. And I hope she'll let me have the free time to look and see my emails before I get down to dinner. And then I'm wondering also, I'm thinking about this while all this is going on. And then I also wonder, who will give me my shower tonight? Is it the person who I feel comfortable with, naked in the shower, being washed and dried? Or is it somebody who will tell me, I've done this for 20 years and I don't need you to tell me what to do, because I know what to do? And I guess that would be great for flipping hot hamburgers at McDonald's, but not for working in an assisted living facility. So I think one thing that I realize living in an assisted living facility is that a caregiver is a person. The care provider is a thing. It's an entity. It's the corporation. It's the facility. It's the entity, the thing. My human contact is not with the thing. It's with the person who I deal with and who helps me, who I depend upon. Now, the two are not related, but they are related. There's a symbiotic relationship because the thing hires the person. The thing has a vision and a philosophy and a mission, and that's either passed on to the person or not. And maybe the thing doesn't have a vision. So the caregiver just comes in, what do you need? How can I help you? Every caregiver who comes into a room, thanks. Every caregiver who comes into a room, the first word they say is, how can I help you? Why do you care? Do you really care how you can help me? Don't you know that if it's before mealtime, I need to go to the bathroom? Why do you go through this mantra of how can I help you? How do you want to help me? Do you want to help me? Or are you just answering the cord that I pull for aid and the job says you have to go there? So I think we should look at caregiving as two words, one who gives and one who cares. And as a dependent person, I'm hoping that the caregiver who gives me aid also cares. I have a metaphor for a caregiver, which at first I thought was sort of overboard, maybe part of my poetic thinking. But I see a caregiver and me. I see me as 82, going to live for a little bit more, I hope. And I see me on a final journey of my living. And who's taking me on that journey? Not one of my children. I'm not in my home. It's a stranger, a person who I don't know. They're my accompaniment to my final years of life. So there has to be some kind of human commonality between the two of us. I think a caregiver has a transcendental definition also. She relates to me as an individual, to my mental health, to my emotions, to my soul. I won't say a caregiver should be a spiritual person, that's going too far, but there should be more to caregiving than just materially putting a hearing aid in my ear or giving me a shower or wiping me after a bowel movement. There needs to be a commonality of enjoying, appreciating, empathizing with one another as people. And I think that's part of what has to go into the making of a caregiver. I think that's all. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that compelling perspective. It's great to be able to hear from people who are going through that, experiencing that, and so that's wonderful. Our next speaker has been very well known in many capacities. Toran is the president and CEO of Volunteers of America Oregon since 1999. Has provided excellent leadership and strategic direction for that organization and tremendous growth in that organization. She was formerly the director of Oregon's Child Protective Service Agency, a senior leader in the Department of Human Services, administrator of Oregon's Procurement Agency, assistant to Governor Victor Atia, and director of Oregon's Affirmative Action Office. Has a tremendous resume. She has served on the faculty of the Graduate School of Social Work as an assistant professor. She received her bachelor's degree from University of Portland and MSW from Portland State. From 2011 to 2015, Kay served on the Oregon Educational Investment Board, and she currently serves on the boards of the Oregon Community Foundation, Providence Health and Human Services Community Board, and the University of Portland's Board of Regents. Welcome.
With that, I should probably just sit down. Hello, everyone. I'll try to be brief with my remarks because I know that we are really up against time. But before I get started, I want to acknowledge the team of folks who do the work in our senior division. And I want you to stand. Allison Bookman, Molly Troughton, and our intern, Anna. I'm sorry, I forgot your last name. Ganesh. This is the team. Thank you. Well, on my way to growing up, I got older, and older. And really, is that not what we were supposed to want? My parents, who were Southern Baptists, used to say to all of us that when you're born, you start the dying process. So when you die, make sure you lived your journey. And I think, that wisdom is probably what we really need in our culture right now. We need to go back to understanding that if you live your life, you're going to get older. And what our role has to be as a community is that we support that getting older, that aging process, so that we're healthy as we possibly can be, that we have access to wonderful relationships, and that we have access to the resources that provide us with options. So what is Volunteers of America's role in all of that? Well, we have adult day care centers that we provide services to the frail elderly. And we do that in partnership with Providence Health and Services, who was in the vanguard of addressing issues related to Medicare and Medicaid eligible seniors, not only in Oregon, but in Washington. We have a contract with them. They provide the clinical support for those individuals that are in the PACE program, the program's all-inclusive services to the elderly. And our role in that is that we provide the Adult Day Service Program, a structured, comprehensive option for aging adults whose relatives want them to remain in their own home, with a support system, with a structured activity that gives them a rich day experience from 8 to 5 before they go home for the evening. We've been in the vanguard of providing adult day services, and I'd like to add to Jim's request that there needs to be a plan. There needs to be a plan with resources in our community so that every individual, not just those that can afford it or have the insurance to purchase it, but that every aging senior has the the resources, financial resources for options for that long-term care. We are excellent at it. We have 2 centers. If somebody were to give us the resources tomorrow, we could probably have 10 in the Portland metropolitan area. That's what the need is. We have one in Southeast Portland, and we have a wonderful one in Northeast Portland that really responds to Portland's African American community. And it was one of the first adult day centers in Portland with that as a mission. I see that card going up. I hope in the discussion we can get more in depth about what we do in our adult day centers. I also hope that when we leave out of here, one of the needs that we have, and I hope that we don't shirk from it, is that we have to have resources. We have to have resources so that every aging elderly person has options. It should not just be for the few. So with that, thank you.
Our final speaker is my friend, LeRoy Patton, who we work together in a lot of different organizations. LeRoy is very involved throughout our communities in many nonprofit organizations. He, I believe, is still chair of the Fair Housing Council of Oregon. Other organizations he's been involved with, the Multnomah County Commission for Children, Families and Communities, Elders in Action, Oregon State Council for Retired Citizens Board, Oregon Retired Educators Association. We're looking forward to him. We've just voted for him, and hopefully he gets the appointment to be on the Governor's Commission in the very, very near future. Because LeRoy has blessed us with becoming very committed to long-term care issues, to access issues within our community. And so we've been working together on a lot of those issues, and we're just recently visiting legislators. LeRoy was a teacher, school administrator. He worked in the superintendent's office within the Portland Public Schools. He has his bachelor's from Oregon State and his master's degree from Portland State, and many other professional certifications and qualifications. It's an honor to have you. Thank you, LeRoy.
Hello, goodbye. I already been told I had 2 minutes or something. So I've got to make an amendment that I'm not accustomed to making after I write 5 pages to read. First thing I want to say is that as you look at long-term care, people don't really look out at what our communities are like. Our underserved communities and our communities of color don't always have the communications or the information that most people have, especially if they have a job. A lot of our low income and communities of color don't have any employer connection. They don't take the paper. They don't congregate together to talk about the state of the community or their kids or anything else. So many of them get passed over when all these big issues are debated and passed out among the communities. Some of them don't know anything about health care, and they're in the worst shape that you'd want to see any human being. So I want to highlight what I have to say with, we have to do a better job of communicating with our underrepresented, our poverty and low income people, especially those who for many years haven't even had a job. So they don't have any professional connections with all the things that we're meeting about today. That's number one. Number two, Oregon has been the model in-home and community-based organization, as has been said before, so I'm not going to go into the details of our position and how we've set the bar for the nation, but we're never talked about in that manner. One of our primary issues as senior advocates is protecting, preserving, and enhancing our state and local senior and disability systems. That has not been a major conversation that we've had. We don't talk about preserving. We're always changing things for the better. And many times that puts us out in the field where we have to be reined in again to be with the systems, because systems is what runs our business, our life, our organizations. In the long-term care side of Medicaid has been significant in institutional and home and community-based services. Many of the seniors that received services would have had no services without that. Oregon was the first state to utilize Medicaid matching dollars for community-based services, thus creating the foundation of Oregon's model long-term care system. The Older Americans Act funds an array of community services to respond to elder needs. We don't usually collectively pull together our groups, whether in health or any other thing, to talk about what kinds of situations do elders need and what can we organize for them to have a better life. So I think we have a communication problem, we have an organizational problem, and we need to all be on the same page when we do this. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank our panel for incredible presentations and for the inspiration they gave us. With 5 panelists, unfortunately, we ran out of time. So if you could take your inspiration into our breakout sessions and put a lot of good energy into developing recommendations that I assure you we will be using in the future. So best of luck in those sessions. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Jim. Thank you, everybody. The plan is that each of you is going to take 3.50 minutes to briefly describe the group's issues and recommendations. So I don't care what order we go in. So anybody ready to start? We have elder justice, healthy aging, long-term services and supports, and retirement security, but that one does need to be last. Are you ready, Fred?
Yeah, I'll jump right there.
Okay.
So I am only ready because my group was awesome that I got to work with. So great conversations in our subgroups and where we were at with recommendations. We started off looking at the 2014 Elder Justice Coordinating Council recommendations that came out at the federal level. And somebody brought that to the table. Ellen Clem, not surprisingly, brought that to the table as a starting point for our conversation, just to kind of help us think through what the feds are looking at. With the subgroup conversations and then our ensuing 45-minute full group conversation, I think really what, 3 of the 4 recommendations are things that need to and can be focused. And this is definitely our Oregon recommendation to the feds in the national level, the White House, of what can be accomplished or needs to be accomplished. I mean, all 4 of them are for the national level. And then 3 of the 4 are things that can be looked at internally in states, either whether it's through legislative action, Governor's Commission on Senior Services, or different county and state approaches. So the first one, and this one very specific at the national level, is the need for more national coordination on elder justice issues and elder abuse. There has been recently, just in October, a renaming of an office at the Administration for Community Living. They renamed the Elder Rights Office, the Elder Justice and Adult Protective Services Office. But as Marie Cervantes confirmed for me, or at least as far as she's aware, there's been no communication from that office as far as what national coordination is going to look like. But I think at the national level, I mean, and I'm even aware, I work with that office. It was a first step to rename it, to have a central location for issues of elder justice and adult protective services. But I'm aware that at least for the last year or so, they don't have a director of that office. They're in the process of hiring one now. From even what it was named previously. So there's just a lot of work to be done at the national level. And for our purposes, and I need to go back and look at my notes for our full recommendation, but it's the need for the data coordination and collection, the awareness. Just a lot of the research that needs to be done. There needs to be a lot more national coordination. So I'm going to put a lot more meat onto that for the products coming out of today. Secondly, a public awareness campaign, and this is definitely one that can and should be done at the national level and can be done at the state level. And we need to spend a lot more time looking at all abuse types was emphasized in our work group. There was some emphasis in some of the smaller groups on financial exploitation in particular, and because of the costs of financial exploitation, more awareness, more education. But the larger group that we had wanted to make sure that we were emphasizing all abuse types, sexual, physical, emotional, psychological abuse as well. An emphasis we can start moving towards, or we should start moving towards some kind of a marketing campaign. And then as a component of that, enhanced supports for victims, and ideally before people become victims, more supports, more resources, infrastructure. So there's a lot of work to be done around there. And again, a lot more even meat than that on that public awareness recommendation. Third is around law enforcement supports. Actually, I'm realizing there actually was 5. So law enforcement supports reconsiderations. We had some conversation, again, not only at the local level, what better tools can we be providing to our law enforcement to get involved in elder abuse situations that are even arguably, and in some instances, out of the hands of what adult protective services can do. We need more considerations, but definitely at the federal level as well, with the FBI, their Department of Justice at the federal level. So that would be a third recommendation. Fourth recommendation is around fiduciary reforms, fiduciary education, so guardianship, conservatorship, powers of attorney, rep payee. We had some conversations specifically around that. Definitely a recommendation at the federal level with Social Security Administration. And I am aware of some activity in that department with Social Security Administration in a subgroup that I've had the privilege of being a part of in the last 6-8 months. But there's much further to go there. A fifth recommendation specifically around, and this wasn't an initial recommendation out of the subgroups, but in the ensuing conversation of our full group really took form. But more, what I'm kind of framing is community approach supports. Around more not just multidisciplinary teams that do exist at the county levels, but more, this interdisciplinary approach to prevention issues. I would categorize our conversations and there was some conversation around, bringing in community health approaches and entities to have some conversations about how we can better really do the proactive prevention of elder abuse. So I will stop there. I'm probably over my time already. Thank you.
Great.
All right. Well, not that it's a competition, but the Healthy Aging people rocked too. and came up with 3 excellent issues. And what they did really well was bundle. We were a bundling group. So I think everyone sees themselves reflected in these. So if we were to look at age-friendly communities, which is also building a community for all ages, it was really clear that this is intergenerational and multi-sectoral approach, but using that age-friendly foundation and infrastructure. Looking to meet the needs of Oregon's diverse communities, really recognizing that a county is a county and no county is alike, that uniqueness that comes to Oregon. And then thinking about what we would need as higher leadership support and leadership support in general as this movement builds from cities, counties, up to the state, but really having the governor endorse this and see this as a vision and a goal. It's aspirational and inspirational, but we know how to do it and we can do it. There's an infrastructure to follow. So getting that commitment from the governor, potentially having a commission, an age-friendly communities commission or communities for all ages commission, having a policy advisor who focuses on to the governor for healthy aging and age-friendly communities. Really looking for that outreach and that communication strategy. So how do we increase awareness and really have people thinking about the importance and what it means to age well in this state and starting that early on. And having a very strong commitment to empowerment. It was really important that communities have the ability to mobilize and empower themselves to identify their priorities, but even more so, really honoring the independent living and the importance of people to be able to engage in their own health and make their own decisions and be part of that instead of being told what to do. So that commitment to that authentic communication and to build trust to make that happen. Recognizing that there's a lack of trust out there maybe in some of the service agencies that are providers and those who are the end users. The second issue is looking to an integrated and comprehensive services that are reimbursed by Medicaid and Medicare. So that kind of captures both the problem and the goal and the solution. But really recognizing that mental health, dental health, physical health, and a long list that we came up with, that we get out of our silos and that we come around true patient-centeredness, which would really mean having multiple care providers in contact and working with each other to help successful optimal health happen for our patients and our community members. So moving out of our siloed sectors, looking at interdisciplinary care and learning. So what does that look like from a medical education perspective? How do we train that earlier on? Again, more community awareness. I think that has really come out loud and clear, and I just heard it in the prior session, is that there needs to be a lot more talking and a lot more broad communication strategies to get conversations happening in people's homes. And then more research and understanding what the data can do, collecting more data and doing more research around how we age and causes of disability. And the last issue, while it kind of is part of those other 2 issues, but was really important that the group didn't want to lose sight of, is just mental health in general for all of us as we age and how that doesn't get lost, that it's really called out and such a key piece of what we need to do so that it is integrated into our care and that it's not seen as a negative, that people aren't afraid to talk about it. And this was also really important for caregivers and caregiver health and what that means to take care of those who are taking care of us. So that's the high-level summary. Thank you.
Well, our group on long-term care was a group that rocks too. Unfortunately, they had a rock for a facilitator. And I cannot find where our sheets were, which I was going to go to. But there were several things that really did come out. And first was every group picked transportation as one of their issues. And the thing that really came out on transportation was that it isn't simply medical and getting people to a particular service. It's about the social aspect. And the way I like to put it is, we haven't moved that far if we've moved from warehousing seniors to putting them in storage units. where they're not connected with the community. And people want to be connected. So we need to do that. And that transportation itself was a socialization aspect for people, as well as a mental health deal in terms of just getting out of their place, and we needed to take it. And of course, funding is you just can't get around it. It's a key issue around transportation. But there also is a need for better coordination of all of the transportation assets within a community. That we need to look at how we have a central hub where you can find information and where the different resources can be used across programs and across ages where possible. And then finally, that there needs to be safety taken into account in terms of it, and talking about public transportation where seniors often don't feel safe within that, but also just training those drivers and stuff to be sensitive to the needs of the individuals that they're working. The other were two around culture. One was culture change, which was spoken up this morning, and that is that we change the concept that aging is an asset, not a problem within our culture, and looking at that. And some of the sort of solutions were things such as age-friendly communities. In other words, don't talk about simply making it accessible for seniors, making it a community that's accessible for people at all ages. We don't need that dichotomy, because things that work for seniors also work for young parents with kids and a stroller or a bicycle or something, that the similar types of concerns are there. And then talking about intergenerational coordination around assets. In other words, building programs where we use the assets of the seniors, which may be wisdom, may be the caring, the knowledge they have, around that of younger people, which may be the physical ability to do things. And looking at how we build that. The one caution was, not all older people want to be around younger people. So recognizing the fact that, this is individual. The other cultural was the whole idea of making our services culturally responsible. And we were lucky enough in our group to have some participants from the deaf culture. And often that is a culture that is ignored when we are looking at serving people. And so they brought some good points about that, that we need to look at each. And once again, it gets around to being person-centered. Each individual is different. But service providers need to be aware of the culture of that person and how that might affect the situation. So there needs to be training around this awareness of cultures and how to deal with. The other thing that came out was still, it's just like transportation. It's been an issue from the beginning. We discussed it the first White House conference that I was at. We're discussing it again. And that is better information on services. That there's still, even with our ADRCs and stuff, our problem. Some of the individuals went to it around deaf services. Most of the deaf services they found on our ADRC or on the website were in New York, not in Oregon. And yet they were aware from their information referral of a lot of services that were available. So we need to go across our various databases and see how we get to them. And then we need to ask, especially our various subpopulations, let's look at the service, our information and referral. Is it working for you? What isn't working? Are you aware of other services and stuff? And let's see, person-centered was the other big thing. And that really crossed a lot of barriers and actually came up around in each of our other discussions. The fact that we need to one, take into account the cultures of the different individuals. Two, that we need to be training our caregivers, but not just the caregivers, people throughout our spectrum about the various cultures, so that they're even aware that there are issues. And one, I think, interesting one was the whole issue about caregivers and caregivers following the person from setting to setting. Because one of the big issues for individuals, and I think that's especially the case for people who feel very vulnerable, is the trust building. And so having somebody who you've learned to trust go with you to the next setting to help, maybe not do all the care there, but help you in that setting is a real key issue to people. So those were the main ones, and we had a lot of ideas, a lot of good ideas, I think, and it's going to be a real experience, I think, for state staff to look at those, because I think there were some very specific types of things that will be helpful.
Thanks, Don.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. Okay, so first I'm going to report out on our retirement security breakout, and then I have some closing remarks on behalf of the department. So I'll start with our breakout, which I think was also just an amazing group of people. We came up with quite a few recommendations, and I'm going to try to go really, really fast so that I can tell you what all of them were, because I don't want to leave them out. So the issues that came up most prominently were around Social Security, the adequacy of benefits currently, and then how to expand and protect SSI, and also the retirement and disability programs within Social Security. And then also related is the fiscal health overall of all of those programs. The second issue was the lack of financial education in general. Cost of living in general, the issues around family caregiving, and the overall lack of savings and the fact that we need to rebuild the three-legged stool. So our recommendations within Social Security, there were a number of recommendations. So to address the fiscal health of the programs, or at least part of the program, we talked about removing the earnings cap, so on the payroll tax. So you would get rid of that, which would increase the longevity of the program and the sustainability of the trust fund. And then we would increase all benefits, SSI and the retirement and disability side, to at least, and this was the very minimum, was 120% of federal poverty. And then also we had consensus, I'll just say, around all of these recommendations. There were a couple that we didn't reach total consensus on, but these were the consensus of the group. We would use the Consumer Price Index for the elderly to calculate the cost of living adjustment, or the COLA, so that it was a truer reflection of the expenditures for older adults. So their cost of living increase would reflect their expenditures. The second recommendation is around positive media attention about retirement security in general, and that can be done through all different forms of media, but we really thought that that would be something that needs to happen right away. Also, fiscal education and awareness and continuing education, starting in schools and then moving beyond. So throughout the lifespan, we would continue the conversation and the education. And a couple different ways of doing that were recommended. One would be to have an evidence-based pilot that would, be a pilot around education. And it would be a long pilot, because you'd want to measure over a long period of time whether you were successful or not at educating people about retirement security. And then also, it was raised that an intergenerational approach is effective. One of the stories in our group was about how when individuals are younger, maybe they don't understand why some of their earnings essentially are put into a plan that they would use later, and they wanted that in their paycheck immediately. And the older people in the workforce were able to say, no, trust me, you're going to need that. And so having that sort of intergenerational connection about what you need when you're older would be important in educating our youth about retirement security. Then we should address wage inequality, or eliminate, we came up with a more strong word at the end there that we had consensus around. So eliminate wage inequality. And some of the sub-issues are around gender disparities, disparities for people of color. We would address age discrimination or elder discrimination, and then make sure there's increased employment opportunities for older adults. Support the opt-out retirement plan discussed today by Ted Wheeler. Rebuild defined benefit plans and strengthen both defined benefit and defined contribution plans. A couple of ways to do that are to take away incentives that encourage conversion of a defined benefit plan to a defined contribution plan. Make plans a little more portable, like they've done in Canada. Encourage really long-term savings, and look at penalties within defined contribution plans to see if they really deter people from cashing out. Because I think in our group there was some indication that, or evidence around the fact that some of those penalties, like the 10% penalty, really doesn't disincentivize people from cashing out, and make sure people understand the value of staying in tax-advantaged plans. Then we would create more innovative ways to save. So thinking about things like an app that would go on your phone and automatically a certain amount of change you might have go straight into a retirement savings plan, as long as there were the appropriate protections in place around the new technology. Address housing. So we endorsed the statement, we had consensus around the statement, housing as a human right in our group. And then also national action around increased revenue, where all entities pay their fair share. And we would look at a new way of budgeting so that we're capturing future savings related to current expenditures and investments. So those were our 10 consensus recommendations. Thank you. Thanks for everyone who participated. So I'm just going to take a couple of minutes. I want to thank all of you on behalf of the Department of Human Services Aging and People with Disabilities program. Our director, Mike McCormick, really wanted to be here to thank you at the end of the day, but because it's legislative session, he did get pulled back to Salem for some legislative responsibilities, but he was here all morning, got to hear all the great panel presentations and our keynote presentations. He really sends his best, and he was really happy to see such a packed room here today. Both Mike and myself, we really look forward to the recommendations from all of these breakout sessions, the panels, the speakers. We want to work with you in an ongoing fashion, and other stakeholders, the legislature, anyone who wants to get involved, so that we continue to be able to have the right types of programs and policies for older adults and people with disabilities in Oregon. And I also want to say thank you so much to Judy Strand and the Governor's Commission, the entire Governor's Commission on Senior Services. So if some of you, I think some of you are still in the room, if you could stand up, I'd like to recognize all of your support. Thank you. So we wouldn't have been able to have an Oregon version of the White House Conference on Aging without the wonderful Governor's Commission. So thank you so much. And last but certainly not least, I want to thank all of our extremely dedicated staff at Aging and People with Disabilities at the state. In particular, Ann McQueen has been our tireless conference planner and advocate. And then she's had all of these other staff and volunteers around to help today. And so if you could all stand up, just want to recognize you and thank you. I think that's all I have. So thanks so much for being here. And I'm going to turn it back to Judy.
Thanks, Ashley. Okay, such a great job. I'm so proud of all of you. And what we're going to do is to work with the facilitators. Staff are going to pull things together and have a tight report that will go to DC. And I'd like to just say from the commission standpoint, we're going to use these ideas for our state work too, from a commission advocacy perspective. So this is just like a dream come true for us. And in light of that, one of our struggles has always been to get statewide representation to feed ideas to the commission. And so a couple of you suggested that we see who's here from different parts of the state. And I realize some people have left, but could you stand or wave if you're on the I-5 corridor? Okay. Southern Oregon. Yeah. Central Oregon. Okay. Eastern Oregon. Okay, we're going to have to go there for the next. Oh, yeah, there they are in the corner. Okay. And how about the coast? Okay, great. Well, that's really good to know. We'll probably know more from your registration, too, so we can figure that out a little bit. And the other thing I wanted to say is that you'll get the information sent to you there if you gave us your email. So you'll get to see all the recommendations that you just heard. And then these are my notes from Anne. I'm supposed to tell you to wear those buttons. There's buttons on your table, and it says, ask me about the White House Conference on Aging. And that's so you can share what we've done. And then also to remind you to do the purple evaluation sheets, please. We need feedback. And if any of you are interested in the tour of the veterans facility that we heard about, there's some people meeting at 4:45, then you can get a tour right away. And then just before we go, I do have something for Anne. Anne needs to come up here. Okay, this has been very hard to hide, but this is thanks to this. So this is from the commission, and we thank you for your incredible work, Anne. Thank you. I mean, I'm telling you, this woman has not had a lot of sleep, so we need to be very kind to her. She's put her all into it, and it wouldn't have happened without her. So, all right, I think we're done, and I feel very inspired. I thank all the speakers, the panelists, the facilitators, the sponsors and contributors, the planning committee, the volunteers, and mostly I thank all of you for being here, and I'm really, really happy with the results. So bye for now. Samaritan Health and the Conference Center staff, the Medicaid Long-Term Care Quality and Reimbursement Advisory Council, AARP Oregon, the Oregon Department of Veterans Affairs, the Oregon Association of Area Agencies on Aging, CCTV Salem, Albany Volunteer Caregivers, and our fantastic conference planning committee.
Here in Salem as much as I can,
every
because
American
Salem
would
is my
want,
home
which is
base.
a little common sense government.
American, young, old, rich, poor,